we start by talking about Paris. And it was yesterday when a gunman with an assault rifle killed a police officer on the Champs-Élysées. The gunman was shot dead by police as he tried to flee on foot. 2 other police officers and a bystander were wounded. President Trump, in the last half hour, has tweeted out, quote, "Another terrorist attack in Paris. The people of France will not take much more of this. Will have a big effect on presidential election." The first round of the presidential election is this Sunday, and suddenly Marine Le Pen, who is the far-right candidate, she's been all about the borders, all about security. She could actually see a surge.
She's just saying France first, and she's a little concerned about the borders and the French people, and not so concerned about being politically correct. I cannot do her definitive biography. I can't do any of these French candidates' definitive biography, but just know this. They are somewhat, this is very reminiscent of our election, and who represents what philosophy with their key ally.
And she has been compared to President Trump.
And that's why President Obama is backing the centrist or the more liberal
candidate. He made a phone call to him.
Okay. So he's not supporting the one who resembles President Trump, clearly.
Right. He yesterday apparently called Emmanuel Macron, who is a centrist, and that's interesting. Meanwhile, you've got the President of the United States yesterday. He was at a press availability yesterday in the East Room of the White House, along with the Italian Prime Minister. Our own John Roberts asked him about the attack in Paris. And here's the President talking about how it looked like terrorism, which he was right.
Well, first of all, our condolences from our country to the people of France. Again, it's happening, it seems. I just saw it as I was walking in, so that's a terrible thing. And it's a very, very terrible thing that's going on in the world today, but it looks like another terrorist attack. And what can you say? It just never ends. We have to be strong and we have to be vigilant, and I've been saying it for a long time.
And France has been on the state of emergency since 2015 with their series of brutal terror attacks that is besieging that great city, hurting terrorism, making people think twice before they go outside. This is definitely not going to help things. On top of that, you have a candidate in Le Pen who says, I'm not really thrilled with the European Union. I'm really France first. And Donald Trump, as you know, praised Brexit, who says, hey, UK, I'll cut you a separate trade deal. We don't need an EU trade deal.
Well, what happened, this terrorist attack could tip the vote. We'll have to see, because the vote starts on Sunday. Let's bring in Jim HANSON. Jim, I know you have said President Trump was criticized by the mainstream media because he was saying it looks like terrorism. They were all over him. I can't believe he's calling it terrorism before we know all the facts. He said it looks like terrorism. He was on the campaign trail saying, I'm going to call it like I see it. People thought that was very refreshing. And I know that you say it looks like terrorism to you, too. You agree with him, right?
I don't think there's any question it's terrorism. You know, when a Muslim guy with an AK-47 opens fire in a crowded shopping area, you don't have to go out on the last limb of the last tree to know what that is. President Trump is a welcome change from the past 8 years where they tried to euphemize this away and pretend it was not what everybody with a above room temperature IQ knows that it is.
Jim, let me ask you this. How will this attack reverberate on Sunday with the people of France in the election?
It reverberated here in the United States when the American people decided they wanted a strong leader. They wanted a commander-in-chief who knows who the enemy is and who takes the fight to him, and so we elected President Trump. I think there's a very good chance, and the polls seem to show, that the French are sick of this as well. They're sick of the appeasement, they're sick of the capitulation, and they're sick of the open borders allowing, you know, tons of people in who don't share their values. I think they may go with someone who is strong on terrorism as well.
Remember, President Obama decided to watch football rather than show up and have a show of unity after the first big terror attack with Prime Minister Hollande. We'll see what happens now. My sense is, as we pick up the pace against ISIS at what is left of the Islamic State, there's going to be these surges. They're going to start squirting out in places like Paris because they don't go down without a fight. In fact, they want to be killed in the fight.
You're absolutely right, and I think this is quite possibly an ISIS-directed attack rather than just an ISIS-inspired attack.
Wow.
The speed with which they came out with the name and responsibility in multiple languages is not the same as the other situations where there have been truck attacks and other things, and I think they were just being opportunistic. We don't know for sure, but that's a sign that this might have been something they planned or knew about in advance.
Wow.
The other point is there are so many names on their terror list. The the French authorities knew this guy. But when Catherine Herridge reports yesterday that there are thousands of people on that list, you might as well not have a list if it's that big. Am I correct, Jim?
Yeah, you know, at some point you have to decide what is the standard for getting yourself on a list that matters, and that list should be getting thrown in jail or thrown out of the country. So just having a list, everybody who might be a bad guy is not helpful. Let's lower the standard for it. Let's make sure that someone who's doing things that lead to terrorism gets stopped before they slaughter a bunch of innocent people.
Indeed. All right, Jim Hanson, Executive Vice President, Center for Security Policy down in D.C. Jim, thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim.